Hi everyone, Catherine here from Inky Finger Cat. I am back with another card making process video. This is following the Kendra's Card Challenge number 21, KCC 21. I am going to do the cutting part, and then clever editing Catherine will tell you when I start making cards. So this is all the cutting and the organising element. I am using the Crafter's Companion papers. Now, I was gifted these by a friend, 12 by 12 paper pack. I have used them for a couple of years. I have put some into my 100 pattern paper pile for the 100 pattern paper challenge, but these I'd already cut and put into a pouch ready to do a Kendra's Card Challenge with. They are, I've no idea what the name of the actual patterned paper pack, put my teeth in, is called, but it's like shabby chic florals, butterflies. It's really pretty, pastel-y colours, but yeah, really pretty. So I've cut 6 of the pattern papers into 6 by 6, and now I am going through and cutting them out according to the templates. So Kendra gives us a template to work with each quarter. This one started at the beginning of July. This is the first time I've used this one. There are a lot of very fiddly pieces, I have to say, in this particular one. They're not always this fiddly, but this one's got quite a few of the teeny tiny fiddly pieces. And I did make one mistake at one point, and there is one card that I can't work out how I'm meant to put it together. But so far I have made 5 cards, so by the end of this video you'll see the 5 cards I've made. But the first part of the video, as I say, is all about how I do the cutting. So if you've been a follower of mine for a while, you'll have seen me do this before. I have these envelopes. These are the envelopes I use every time now. And what happens is I will cut a piece of paper according to the guide. I will lay it out on the left-hand side, and then I will put all of the pieces for each of the corresponding cards into their corresponding numbered envelope. This is the point where I made the mistake. So that piece there that's on the right hand side of the template up at the top should have been one solid piece, and I did it as 2 pieces cut apart by accident. I don't think it'll matter in the grand scheme of things. I'm sure it'll be fine. Randomly though, that's the card I can't work out how to do, so I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, I pop them all into an envelope for each of the cards that they belong to, and then I do all this in one stage, and then the next stage, which you'll see on video in a minute. In fact, let's speed this up a little bit, because at the end of the day it's all fairly simple. It's just cutting according to the guide. I will say the guides are really easy to follow because they tell you where to make your first cut, which is why I'm frustrated I did it wrong, because it's quite simple. They give you a direction for each of the pieces, so you know if you've got one that's got very directional pattern to it, which one you need to use, you know, that particular paper with, for example. Now, I then get out the card sketches for each one and my envelopes, and then I go and choose some coordinated pattern paper. So I chose to use some 12 by 12 pastel cardstock from Kingston Crafts because I've got quite a bit of it, and it is so pretty and it coordinates really well with the papers. I would always suggest choosing some colours and maybe a bit of neutral, so I do have some greys in there, and I also choose to bring in some white cardstock at one point. Now, the sketch on this first one includes a sort of semicircle. I decided not to do any die cutting at this point, and I will do it when I get round to the assembling of the cards. And I don't actually end up doing card sketch number 1. I picked the card sketches later on in the video, you'll see, completely at random. I chose them completely at random. I did not choose to do them in order. I just literally pulled out an envelope and just went with it. It was how I was feeling. This was a day where it was a Saturday, and I had done quite a bit of crafting that day. So I was feeling like this is an organised moment, not necessarily a put together moment, which is why I'd chosen to do this project ready for the first of the month. So the first of the month over on my blog is always pattern paper day. I don't always do it over here on my YouTube, but I did choose to put the camera on. The only issue with that is I did not have a very full battery on my phone, and I didn't realise, and you'll see on the final card, you're missing a bit of footage of me putting it together, just because I didn't realise it totally ran out of battery. I don't think I've ever had my phone totally run out of battery before. Yeah, just had no idea that I'd been filming for so long. So all in all, I think I was crafting for about an hour and a half, and I maybe missed about 10 minutes of me putting stuff together, and then I realised what had happened. Good point though, because that was time for tea, so I did need to stop. But you can see here I am choosing to use different colours of cardstock. All of the fabulous card sketches come with measurements, so you know how big your mat and your layers are meant to be. They are all designed for American size. I think they call them A2 cards. We would call them a C6 card. But it isn't the same dimension. So the quarter of a size of A4 is not the same as quarter of letter size, for example, which is what the Americans use. So what I end up doing is always, well, not always, because I have done some where I've gone with the traditional American size of 5.5 by 4.25. I have done some where I've just made my own card blanks for that. However, normally what I do is I just mount them on a 5x7 and they make a nice card topper. And that is what I've done with the 5 that I've made so far. As I say, some of these are quite fiddly. This one in particular, I think it's going to make a fab card when I get round to doing it. But it's a bit fiddly, all those little strips. There's just, you know, there's room for things to go not quite right. But I think it's really cool. Kendra gives us these really different card sketches. I would never make anything like this one in a month and Sundays. It's never something I would choose to do. So it is nice when she gives us something a little bit different. So each of the cards, you can see I'm pulling the pieces out of the envelope, then I'm choosing what colour I want to go with them. Sometimes I'm going for neutrals, sometimes I'm going for quite bold colours. It really just depends on what is speaking to me when I am pulling those papers out and what I think will work. Sometimes I'm cutting the extra elements that it's suggesting. Sometimes I don't. So sometimes it's like suggesting a die cut on the top. I'm leaving that until later on. And that's pretty much the cutting and the organising process that I do. For all of the Kendra's card challenges, this is how I do them. I cut the paper one by one. I put them in the envelopes so that they're organised. I then go through bringing out my, my coloured and my neutral coloured cardstock, my solids, in order to do the mats and the layers, and working out the process of how they work. Now, this is the one I can't get to work. I just don't understand what's happened here. So in the end, I think what I'm going to end up doing is just making this one up as I go along. I do end up putting like a little post-it note because I think, well, maybe I'm just not laying them out straight. But it just doesn't make sense at all to me. Either I've cut the one on the left-hand side too short or the one on the right is too long. I'm just not quite sure. I think it's the one on the left that's too short. Randomly, that's also the one where I cut it in half by accident. So it's actually 2 pieces, not 1. So I'll make something up from it. I'm not really concerned that it's not going to work. I'll still find a way of using that. But yeah, I am writing a little post-it note to remind myself this is the one that needs a bit more work because it's not worked. I do also end up with one card here where I've got an extra piece. And again, I don't really know how that's happened, but maybe if I reread it, it'll make more sense. And maybe it's just occasionally she cuts, there are some little offcuts and she just suggests they go on the insides of cards. Now, I have been this year trying to make an effort with the insides of my cards. And normally, when I'm using pattern paper, I just use scraps of the pattern paper. But there aren't any scraps from a Kendra's card challenge. That's the thing. There is like tiny, tiny scrap. But the good news is I have still got some of that paper left. So I'm just going to take a couple of sheets of that paper, cut myself some strips, and they're going to be mat and layer within the card blanks that I end up using. I don't put this on camera, but if you want an idea of how I do this, I have got a short that shows you how I finish the insides of cards from my last month's Kendra's Card Challenge pattern paper beginning of the month project. Very different project to this one because that was quite masculine, really. There was a lot of neutrals. It was a lot of black, cream and craft going on. A little bit of green or turquoise thrown in there. But this is very floral and very pretty. So this is a very different theme to last month's. But if you want to see how I finished the insides of the cards, there's just a little short you can go and watch. Okay, we are nearly there. I promise we are nearly there. This is the last one, I think, on this. Pretty confident this is card number 15. If it's not, I'm really sorry. I am, as I say, including some white bits here and there as well, so that I'm not just doing the coloured cardstock. I am adding some neutrals in as well. Now you can see on this sketch, it's actually got circle, but I'm going to end up doing these cut as squares. I may end up die cutting the circles out of them when I come to assemble the card, but that's just giving me the cardstock ready for it. And you can see on the right hand side, that's me pulling together all of the scraps of the cardstock that I've got left. I will put them in a pouch so that they are ready for me to use for when I want to add extra elements, die cut some bits and pieces, etc. That's what I'll do with those. So, time for the first card I made, and I chose card sketch 13. Why not? I literally just picked the envelope at random. The sketch is definitely a landscape sketch. I had got a little bit of directional elements to my pieces of pattern paper because they have got like a scripty colour, a scripty element to them in the background, both the two pattern papers that were on this page. I decided it didn't matter in the long run because I was going to cover it up with quite a lot of other stuff, so I decided it didn't really matter. So I did start off arranging this as if it was going to be a portrait card, but I do end up turning it back into the landscape, which is the original sketch direction. Again, Kendra's Card Challenge, the sketches are just the jumping off point. You absolutely do not have to follow them directly. They're just an idea. This is how to use these pattern paper pieces you've cut from the templates that will work for you. That's how she does it. So I am deciding what to do for my focal point. Now, you may have seen at the very beginning of the video when I was waffling on about something else that I had this pouch full of fussy cut floral items. I spent quite a while fussy cutting quite a few of the papers that were in that pack of pattern papers to have elements that I could stick on so that I was ready ahead of the game to do this. And this is another thing I do to get ready ahead of the game, and that is to have all my sentiments ready. I don't necessarily have all of them, but the ones that I wanted to use, I'm going to go to my bag of ready done sentiments first, and I'm going to pull those out. And that makes life so much easier. This first card, the thing that I did was I added a doily as my circle element, then put this big floral over the top of it. So I've got a little bit of the doily showing through. I am now going over that floral element that I'd fussy cut with my Wink of Stella that I am obsessed with using at the moment. I've added a few gems, and that's card number 1 done. Okay, on to card number 2, which is actually card sketch number 4. Again, just picked it at random. This has got this sort of like, I want to say like parquet flooring style pattern. It's really cute, works really well. Doesn't really matter that they are tiny scraps almost of the pattern paper, and you can't really see distinct patterns on them, especially because I end up covering up quite a bit of it. But I think it looks really cute. So you'll see here, I've sort of started in the corner of each of my pieces, with each of my pieces that sit in the corner, and now I'm just filling in the gaps, trying to keep it as a sort of like even border around each of them. And that's my biggest tip for these sorts of fiddly ones, is start at edges and then work your way across. So in this pouch, I'm pulling out all the ones that look like they belong to one of the pattern papers that I included. I'm just going to mat and layer that. I know I've been doing a lot of gutting of my cardstock recently. I don't do it on these 5 cards. I don't know why. I just chose not to. I did and ah about adding in those doilies because they were on the desk next to me, but I didn't end up doing that. I ended up going and taking a piece of the white cardstock that was scrap left over. Oh no, first I embossed it. I tried my new embossing folder. Got this a good couple of weeks ago. It's the first time I've tried it. Really pretty. You can't really see it on this because obviously it's the pattern paper, but I promise you there is a pattern in there. It almost looks like a little bit of a pierced effect, if you know what I mean. You'll see it better on another card that I make a little bit later. Anyway, I took a die and I took some white cardstock and I die cut myself a circle because I just wanted these flowers to sort of lift off a little bit from the background, and if I put them directly onto the background they were just sort of like seeping in there. They didn't really look like they were distinct. So I'm going to add these flowers to my little die cut circle to create like almost a trailing floral effect going round. Not quite all the way round, but you know, almost round the whole circle. And then I'm going to add that onto my card. I have kept everything fairly flat at this point. I have not raised anything on dimension, on foam adhesives, etc. Now, I did try to use this enamel accents in like a champagne colour. It was not coming out well. So it's fine, it does for this job. The bottle has now gone in the bin because it's clearly gone off and it clearly isn't working anymore. It's very old. I've probably had it about 10 years, maybe longer. So that is that card done and dusted. And now we're on to card sketch number 9. So card sketch number 9 has got this kind of like diamond effect in the middle, but otherwise it's just the 2 pieces of pattern paper. I went with a pink background and the white, a pink base layer and then the white background. I did decide to edge my panels with a sort of medium grey, I think it's Cool Grey 3, Pro Marker, just to give them a little bit of definition. I did the same on this piece of the white cardstock. Again, just gives it a little bit of a frame, but it's quite subtle. I did do that on another card as well, but that might be the one where the recording went off. But that was dead simple, just literally cutting it, sticking it down, perfect, dead easy. And already you can tell it's a really effective card. Obviously pulling in all these little fussy cut elements does take time if you're going to do the fussy cutting one at a time, but actually I just did the whole load of fussy cutting whilst watching telly. I don't know how long it took me because it took me a while, I'm not going to lie, and probably my hand was hurting by the end of it, but just doing it whilst watching telly, just it's mindless. You kind of, I mean, you can't watch telly, but you need to watch every single detail. You can't do this and watch The Traitors, for example, where you're really focusing on everyone's facial expressions and all the rest of it. But, you know, some are easy to watch. Perfect. So this time I'm adding in a bit of dimension. I'm also adding a little bit of thread. So I had a little thread bow, double bow, just using a few glue dots to keep that in place, and then I'm going to put that dimensional flower over the top, and that just looks fab, I think. But these are the sorts of little finishing touches in terms of having those fussy cut elements, adding a bit of texture with your thread, etc., adding the wink of Stella, which we all know I'm obsessed with. Those are the finishing touches that really elevate the card. I think this is such a cute one, and it was so simple. And this is another one that was really simple. Card sketch number 3. It's just the one piece of the pattern paper. And then it's mainly cardstock. I did add in some speciality cardstock. So I added in this kind of like beautiful rose gold cardstock. This is a Stampin' Up one I've had for quite a long time. I think it came with a card kit or something along those lines. So I have had that for quite a while, but it just elevates the card when you add in something like pattern paper. And another thing that elevates it is the beautiful embossing folder. So on this card you will see the pattern to it a little bit better than you would on the other one, where it was over the pattern paper. But yeah, so pretty. And then after I've stuck these on, I do make a little bit of a mess with the glue, but it doesn't matter because it ends up being covered up. I did just use my trimmer rather than my scissors to cut off those extra elements, just to make sure it was a nice straight edge and it had not, you know, I'd not messed up on it at all. I decided to go dimension heavy on this one. Lots of foam adhesive. I tend to try and use, rather than individual foam adhesives like I am doing here, I tend to use scraps of cardstock to build up layers, or I'll use children's craft foam, just because it's a little bit cheaper than using lots of foam adhesive, and also it's just a little bit thinner. This adds quite a lot of dimension, these foam adhesives. I think they're great and they're fabulous, and to be honest, I've got loads of them, so I'm not concerned about how much they cost, but it's more that normally they're a little bit too much for when you're just raising a whole layer. I decided it was fine. Again, I chose a few of the cut apart pieces that I had fussy cut out of pattern paper, added in my sentiment. This time I chose a different sentiment. This is a waffle flower sentiment that's, again, ready done, or already in my stash. And then added some pink gems, and that, I think, is gorgeous. Now we're on to the final card, but this is card sketch 10, but this is where you'll lose footage towards the end. My camera, clearly tired, just like I am now, had decided I'd had enough of crafting, and so it needed to switch itself off. So again, I'm adding in some of the Cool Grey 3 Pro Marker around that border. That's just going to give it a sort of pale grey edge. And then I'm going to start adding my pattern paper pieces in for card sketch number 10. This just creates a nice simple frame. It's really pretty. I again decided to do some embossing, so I decided instead of using the same embossing folder, I did go for something different, and I went for this brocade. It embossed it quite deeply, but I think it works well. But apologies, this is where the camera is about to cut out, so you won't see me adhere the rest of it together. So we'll just pause on this still a little bit longer so you can see. I just added a little cluster of the flowers that I'd fussy cut out to the right hand side, and then I added the sentiment on top of that little sentiment place in the bottom of it. That's a Dina Wakley foiled sentiment. And that was it, dead simple. So here are some more close-ups of all of the cards that I made, all 5 in this first crafting session. I am tired now, but I've probably got about 20 minutes. I'm probably going to try and make a couple more before I give up for the night. So I'll probably make some more for another video coming soon. So please do remember to subscribe to my video. It really helps if you then hit the notification bell, because then you'll get informed when my next video's up. And because I do not make a promise about always posting, etc., I can't guarantee when the next video will always come up. Hopefully it'll be sometime soon though. I've really enjoyed putting these together. I love Kendra's card challenges. I think that they are brilliant. You can check her out. I'll pop her little link in the description box below, but I'm sure if you just search Kendra's card challenge, you'll find it. She offers the template for free for 3 months. She then has Patreon if you want to go back and see old ones, and I think it's quite reasonable. I've not joined Patreon to know, but I don't think it's very expensive. You could probably join it for the 1 month and go and backdate everything if that's the way you wanted to do it. There is a Facebook group where we share everything. She offers competitions and all the rest of it. I don't usually join in those, to be honest. I'd used to do them when they were on the Facebook group, but I can't be bothered doing the links or whatever it is now. But she does offer quite a lot of prizes. And I think there's quite a lot of inspiration out there for using these in very different ways. Please do leave me a like and leave me a comment below to see if you enjoy these. I'd love to know what you think. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Till next time, bye-bye.